Hello, we're Hacktivist. You're watching Radio Addict TV.
Got your debut album coming out March the 4th. It must be an exciting time to be in Hacktivist.
Always been an exciting time to be an Hacktivist. I think since Hacktivist started.
Yeah.
Nothing but exciting.
Day one.
Yeah.
But particularly exciting right now.
Excited.
Coming up to like just under 4 years since the first release of your self-titled EP, isn't it? And a lot of bands would have rushed to get something out and kind of ride that wave of hype, but you guys managed to keep the momentum up, and if anything there's more anticipation now because you've waited longer. Was that something you did consciously? You wanted to work on it longer, or was it like just took a while to get out?
It definitely wasn't very premeditated in that way. It was more the fact that we had less time to actually dedicate specifically to writing. As soon as we had released the EP, it was pretty heavy on the touring, and obviously the level that we were at, it was all cram into a van and or cars and drive all over Europe. So there wasn't so much time to be able to kind of properly get into it. But towards the end, well, closer to the time when it was all finished, we did kind of want to spend a bit more time actually sort of tinkering with it to make sure it was sounding absolutely the best it could.
Yeah.
It was important as well to make sure we had that like solid fan base established, going out playing all the live shows.
Yeah.
It's all well and good having a song that people like on YouTube, but if no one's going to come to your shows, if you don't put on a good live performance, then it's not going to be any good. So we kind of spent a lot of time paying our dues,
Getting
out on the
road
road, yeah.
rough and ready.
And now the album's ready.
Since that EP, there's been loads of messed up stuff going on in the world. You do write politically minded stuff. What has happened in recent events that has made it onto the debut album lyrically, like world events wise? What's fucked up that's happened that you guys are complaining about?
Particularly political drum parts on there, if I remember correctly. Yeah.
Cool right now.
Yeah.
I put in loads of ghost notes to say about how we're at like ghost warfare with other
There's not enough
nations.
attention paid to either
It's not
impoverished.
exactly.
No.
Ghost.
I think there's been a couple of like natural disasters and shit that's happened lately. So like the track No Way Back kind of talks about those bits.
Yeah.
General war.
General
General, I think it's a
warmongering.
bit more subtle. We're not going in attacking like very specific
No.
kind of like incidents and stuff, where we have done in the past on like Elevate, for example. But it's not all politically aimed on this one as well. There's a lot more kind of.
a lot more diverse than just political. We've got a couple of different directions.
I have noticed with like bands like you guys and Shikari, it's rather than being like, "Oi, you should vote this party shit, you shouldn't do this." It's more of pointing out shit anywhere it is, whether it be in the music scene or politics kind of thing, rather than kind of being labelled as a political band.
Well, no, encourage people to think for themselves and kind of see the bigger picture rather than necessarily point it out and then say you should now do that.
Rather than focusing on any.
So just kind of keeping it broadly positive for one, rather than just being kind of more nihilistic, and then encouraging open-mindedness and just self-educating, really. Find things out for yourself.
I would say, whilst a lot of people would associate kind of that message with something along the lines of punk, I do see it more in hip-hop. And do your hip-hop influences kind of help put that message forward more clearly?
I see your point, yeah. I mean, both of them are strongly all about the message.
Yeah.
It's maybe somewhat controversial to say that hip hop is like not the new punk, because they've both been going for almost as long as each other.
Yeah.
But hip hop is like that real reflection of people's lives and the things they go through, which isn't necessarily going to be a pretty picture. Hip hop's being a means for people to communicate like the hardships they've been through. I'm not saying that Milton Keynes has been the hardest streets to grow up on, but it's a good way to get an alternative message out.
Yeah. I mean, other, not necessarily hip hop acts, but like Rage Against the Machine, they have hip hop influences and still kind of are able to push through push through a message with their stuff more clearly because of it, I'd say, as with a more modern example like Straight From The Path, using that as well.
They're
I think
sick actually, Straight From The Path.
Yeah, it's just What do you think it is about that kind of style of delivery that makes it easier to put more of your own point of view across? I guess more of your own actual opinion, because there's more. I'd say I can hear more of your personality of Hacktivist themselves in your music than I can say in a straight up metal band. I can't really hear what they believe in as much, you know.
Maybe part of this, we don't take ourselves as seriously as a lot of metal bands. Maybe, I mean, take ourselves seriously to an extent, but at the end of the day, we're here to have a good time.
Yeah.
And we're not trying to. On that whole.
And there are songs about that on the new album, like
there's plenty of songs about
being touring and having more of a good time.
I think it's a very accessible way of hearing speech and information, though. So that's definitely one of the ways in which that it makes it easier to get your point across, because it's kind of like it's more conversational.
Yeah.
Like the fact that hip hop is linked to the whole spoken word, like poetry side of things. Yes, obviously, if you're screaming a message at someone, that's going to be very in your face.
Yeah.
So that is also a good way to get your point across. But being lyrical and painting pictures and stuff it's very understandable, because it's kind of like speech. It's easy to get across your point to someone. It's like you're speaking to them.
What kind of themes are you guys touching on the new album? I know it's probably loads, but just
striving to be the best.
Page number 1.
Well, personal improvement.
Yeah, personal improvement.
Living life to the fullest, taking nothing for granted.
Mr. Lyrics.
Words. Life and death.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's some serious points as well as some fun points.
Yeah, life and death, partying.
That's a type of partying, isn't it?
Yeah.
Life and death.
Yeah, party till death.
Either you're going to live through it, or it's just that's the last party, isn't it?
how are Hacktivist songs constructed? Because obviously with metal bands they'd kind of have the track and then they'd think about the vocals in a lot of cases, and then hip hop acts might write the lyrics and then think, oh, I want this kind of beat to go with it. How does it happen with Hacktivist? Do you guys write some instrumentals and then you find your way around it, or?
Well, it's when it starts, it's like Tim will just kind of make a little riff, and then me and Ben will kind of write to it, and then you guys will change your little bits on it as well. Like Rich will go through the drums and he'll change a couple of bits. Josh will have a little look at the bass, change some bits. And then me and Ben usually try out some lyrics on that beat, and then sometimes Tim will change the beat again, and then we'll take a bit out of another track and a bit out of another track, put them together, put it all together, change it around again.
It's a combination of the two styles that you're talking about, where the songs aren't necessarily written for lyrics, and the lyrics are shaped to the song, but they might have come from a notepad from someone else. Because like Ben and Jay, it's constantly writing, especially on tour, or just got your headphones on, just filling up pads with lyrics. So when it comes to a new track that like we've started demoing, you can kind of look through your lyrics and go, yeah, that's going to work really nice. And that's like the starting point for Ben and Jay to then start getting whole songs worth of lyrics together. And then the band stuff all gets tightened up in the studio.
And there are quite a few. There are a couple of guests on the debut album. How did they come about? Did you just think, oh, this would be a good spot for someone, or?
Just mates and kind of keeping it all not necessarily in house, but like keeping it vaguely like family based, really. Because you've got obviously Raoul from Shikari, and
Jamie, Heart Coward.
Yep, and then Asteroid Boys, who we've done a fair bit with here and there. And then Jot Maxey and Marlon Hurley are both from Milton Keynes, also relations in some cases. And obviously they're all just sick, so it's just kind of like we were thinking about this section might be good for, you know, a certain input from like a guest or whatever, and then based on who we probably know and are more familiar with personally, then we would think, oh, maybe this guy would be good for that.
I like that. It's all kind of closely knit. It does remind me of like what Roadrunner albums in the noughties did, and like Korn's Follow the Leader, where they just kind of get people they're hanging out with at the time on it.
Yeah, I mean, that's the easiest way to do it, because otherwise it's like, oh, I think one of my favourite bands might be perfect to feature in this, and then you've got to somehow get through through business channels or something to get in touch with them via managers and stuff. Or if your mate is also really good at what they do and you think, actually that would be great, I can hear them on that as well, just call your friend up immediately rather than waiting weeks and faffing around with all the politics.
On that note, who would your like dream collaboration be with if you could have anyone on a track? Big question.
Well, for us, Hacktivist, I don't know, like Korn or something.
Yeah, for some reason when I think of that question, I did think Korn straight away.
If we were doing a seriously political song, Immortal Technique would be fucking amazing.
Sick.
That would be absolutely incredible, I think.
Sweet.
Obviously Rage Against the Machine. That's a given.
You wouldn't say no, would you?
Mm,
Well, how different was it when you were recording the debut album compared to the EP? Because obviously so much had changed for you guys since then. What were some of the major differences between the two?
it's in process-wise?
Creative process, yeah.
Right.
The process
Wasn't
it was
that different?
Yeah, I think the EP maybe felt not more rushed, but there wasn't the kind of the long consideration that we took when we were writing the album. Everything was looked over and over and over, reworked and looked over again, whereas the EP kind of just came out pretty quick at the time.
I think we did manage to kind of streamline the process of writing the album a bit more. The EP seemed a lot more ad hoc, a lot more kind of like, oh yeah, we got a track and then that's done and then I can move on to the next one. This one we did kind of have a bit more of a process, like a bit more of a straightforward line of doing things. But I mean, yeah, it's still pretty loose.
But like, I guess the feeling of writing and recording the album was way different to the EP. Like we touched on earlier, we've just been touring so extensively since the EP dropped that writing the album has been if we've got like 3 or 4 days between tours or between shows, we'll try and get like a day or two in the studio. But all of our studio, you have to dismantle, put into live boxes, and then that becomes our live rig. So when we play a show, come back, spend a day dismantling everything, building it back into a normal studio, get 1 day's recording, and take it all back down. So it's a bit disjointed in places. I think we all kind of felt the pressure a bit. There was a couple of times we hit writing blocks and this and that, as anyone working on my debut. But it's cool. I hear the second album was really, really easy to do. So that's what we say, right? The easy second album, isn't it?
Yeah.
The easy second album.
Then we've got the experimental, futuristic third album where we go like acid jazz.
All 80s Herbie Hancock on it.
Definitely.
You were saying about the kind of dismantling everything, setting up in the studio. I found that interesting just because on record you are able to capture the same energy you have live. I think you're when I saw you six, like almost tore the roof off the forum. Would you put that down to a bit like having the same set, like dismantling and setting up again, or how are you able to kind of capture that energy that you have on record? Do you know, or is it just something that comes completely naturally?
I don't know, like,
just do it.
Tim's a very talented producer. We're lucky to have a guitarist that's a very capable guy that on our days off we can go over to his house and record in his spare bedroom and we get that kind of result from it.
Yeah,
I don't know, I guess it's just pushing ourselves.
I think it's definitely one of the elements though, because sound is definitely an important part of a performance for like the live side of things. And so if you go and see a band and they sound exactly like the record, then that's something you do notice. You don't often, I guess you wouldn't necessarily notice if you went and watched a band and it didn't sound exactly like it had on a CD, but that is something that's noticeable, I find, when you go and see a band and it sounds exactly like when you just had them on in the car on the way to the gig or whatever. And so I think, maybe the fact that, that all the equipment is the same that is used to record as is to play, that's certainly got to have some effect on it. But then also the tracks are just rowdy, really. So when we're recording and sort of amping each other up right before pressing record or whatever, it's kind of the same as just going out and playing a show, really. So like the energy's kind of always there, whether we are recording it or whether we're playing it. And then the sound, I guess, is definitely
helpful.
Are there any like absolute curveballs on the debut album that we should expect?
No, I think there's a couple. If you've
Yeah.
not heard it yet, it's gonna. I imagine probably be out by the time this interview goes out.
Yeah.
So hopefully everyone will have
Okay.
bought a copy and had a listen to it.
Yeah,
But,
there's one track that you might not expect.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. There's a couple of tracks.
Well, okay.
I think for people that have only listened to us from the EP, people will be surprised. Like there's a lot of new directions. We've pushed it in, explored different sounds, different ideas. Yeah.
Obviously, first album, you only get one first album, of course. Would you say it's a good statement of what Hacktivist is? Is that what you went out for?
Yeah, definitely. So it's a massive statement where Hacktivist is now in 2016 as opposed to where we were in 2011.
Not 16.
Well, not 16. Yeah, when the first one came out.
Yeah. After this tour, what's next for Hacktivist? You're going to be destroying festivals? What are you going to get up to?
That's a plan. I think we've conveniently planned the album to come out in time to kind of jump onto a decent festival season.
Yeah.
I think we've announced
We've got a
Slam
few-
Dunk, Slam Heavy Fest, Complexity Fest, which is going to be like next week in Holland.
Yeah, we're playing 2Q Festival over in Derby.
Yeah.
Then there are a couple of little murmurs bits.
More to be announced. And then just a lot more touring. Lots and lots of touring.
Wicked.
We're touring in May, supporting Issues in the UK
nice.
and in Europe as well. So that's going to be
With
sweet.
Asteroid Boys.
With Asteroid Boys,
With our
who
buddies
feature
Asteroid
on
Boys.
the album. So, pow
All
pow.
rounds up nicely.
Yeah.
I bet touring with visuals will get you out to a lot of people that haven't heard you.
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
Yeah.
A little kind of lighter side. But last question is for a documentary I'm making, which is all about people's musical heroes. We're just asking artists who their main musical hero is. So, big question I know, but who's your musical hero and why?
We'll start with Jay.
Not me.
Musical hero. There's too many that I like. I don't know which one to say. I've got loads. Like that's probably like 10 that I've got. But like Wiley. Eminem's pretty good. Hero wise.
Is that?
I've got too many
Inspiration.
inspirations. Yellow Wolf, Ritz, Tech 9. How many do I have to give? More?
How many heroes you want?
Yeah.
I would probably go with Flea. I think Flea
Yeah.
from Red Hot Chili Peppers. He's one of the primary reasons I went for playing bass. I think because as a kid I got pushed towards Red Hot Chili Peppers, and I remember thinking, my guy is just incredible. Like the way that he plays, the style he plays, the sound he gets. It's cool. It just kind of redefines the role of a bass player in the band. He's not that quiet guy stood behind the drums. He's right up at the front. He's been a big influence.
Drum wise, Vinnie Colaiuta is ridiculous, and also Mitch Mitchell, who was the drummer for Jimi Hendrix Experience. And then metal wise, I guess it would be. I was actually early on really influenced by the Rev from Avenged Sevenfold, because he managed to keep it like just relentless but really musical as well. I found that at the time everyone was like seriously into either Travis Barker or Joey Jordison, and I thought he was kind of a more musical version of the two personally. Mike Portnoy, and then you got people like obviously Billy Cobham and stuff. So any drummers out there just need to listen to all of them.
Wicked. Thank you so much, guys.
Cool. Cheers.